Hello, everybody, and welcome on Into One Soccer. Today, full house on the show. Andy Petrillo, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler, Jordan Wilson with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the start of Major League Soccer. It actually happened this week. We did see games played on Wednesday. No surprise there. Hello, Inter Miami in action with Lionel Messi. But here we go. We're going to see some Canadian teams in action starting this weekend. It's the official kickoff of a lot more teams in MLS, and that's what we're going to dive into right now, are the Canadian teams. And it's not going to be an easy start for two of them. CF Montreal, they're away to Orlando, the team that finished second in the league last year. We've already seen them in action against Cavalry in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Orlando looking good. They've added some key pieces. Then you have Cincinnati, the Supporter Shield winners, the first in the league, taking on Toronto FC on the road. Vancouver Whitecaps, they actually have a bye week as they start their season next Saturday versus Charlotte. And this is going to be simple, guys. All I'm asking you is if you're in or you're out on these teams. You like, you don't like. And then I want you to give me a prediction. What's it? What are you shaking? What are you
just saying? This bit has been clearly ripped off. I guess I'm giving my permission from a show I hosted in Toronto over a decade ago called The Grill Room. An entire segment. Are you in or are you out? In or out?
Let's bring it back. Why don't you intro it? Intro it. Do it with gusto. Do it with gusto.
I have no Andy Petrillo. You think you nailed it? I'm just inning and outing. That's it. That's it. That's why I give a shout out to my old show. That's it.
All right. Props to something 10 years ago. I love it, though. That also just goes to show how long you've been around, my friend.
Yes.
Let's get to CF Montreal, but I'm actually going to begin with Ollie on this one. You in? Ooh. You out?
Starting with the hardest one, I think. I'm cautiously in on CF Montreal.
Oh, here we go.
I didn't even really think about what I was doing there. Okay, I'm in. I'm not cautiously in at all.
Thank
I'm
you.
Wholeheartedly in. Look, I think it might take a bit of time. I don't know that this team is going to start the season on fire, but generally, I like what I see, and I like what they've done over the course of this offseason. I think, like for me, the Hernan Losada tenure didn't really work out. I think that was a departure from the way this team had success under Wilfried Nancy in terms of the style of play. Not Losada's fault. Don't think he's a bad coach. Just don't think he was the right fit. And I think they made the right decision, and maybe a decision they had to make the way some of the relationships in that locker room were going to make a change. They brought in someone in Laurent Courtois, who's obviously been part of that Columbus Crew organization. Reading from the same hymn sheet that Nancy is, I think, in terms of the style of play, and he's going to bring them a little bit more back to that. And I do think that this team always seems to be the case every year with Montreal. I think they're very easy to underestimate. A lot of the coverage of the team is in French, and so the English language media, I think, tends to dismiss them a little bit, or not really maybe know the team in as much depth as they do others. And so it's easy in a competitive Eastern Conference to just say, well, Montreal, they weren't great last year, we'll put them down the bottom of the East. I don't think that this is a team that's going to, finish 15th, 14th, and really struggle in the Eastern Conference this year. You look at the roster that they've got, like they've made some meaningful additions. I think the wing-back positions are a lot stronger. Up front, they've got far more options than they have last season. And no one of real consequence has left. Romel Kyoto is obviously the big name, but he wasn't a huge factor last season because of injuries. Aaron Herrera didn't really hit in the way they hoped. And I think Ruan coming in is a like-for-like replacement for him. So I think you've got reinforcements coming in those new recruits. I think you've got guys who were brought in during last season, such as Bryce Duke, Ariel Lassiter, who should be better this year just for having a bit of time and a full preseason under their belt. And the X factor for me with the CF Montreal team is I think their academy continues to produce very good young players. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what someone like a Nathan Saliba can do this year. Now he's had a full year in MLS and has a bit more comfort at this level. So I'm not predicting that this team is going to be top 3 or 4 in the Eastern Conference. I think this is going to take time under Courtois. I think they may not start great because of the style of play and some of the risk associated with it. But I do think a team that was 2 points outside the playoffs last season, and for me is better this year, can be back in that hunt for, kind of the lower playoff places in the Eastern Conference again.
Is that your prediction then, that they're just going to hover in making the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they're a bubble team, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them on the right side of the line this year.
Wheels?
This is where the graphic would come up. I am in. I am way in on CF Montreal for a number of reasons. This team last year under Losada, who I think is a good manager, not a great communicator, but a good manager, the team was threadbare. They had so many question marks, so many injuries, so many kids, so many players not ready. They started the season with an incomplete squad, and they lost 6 of their first 7 games, and they were that close, within touching distance of qualifying for the playoffs. They're bringing a manager in Courtois, who I rate. I think that the system is applicable for what is being built in CF Montreal. Ollie touched on some of the young players. They couldn't score last season. They couldn't score. Kyoto was out. Toy was out. Now, Toy can come back into the team, but he's not going to be relied upon solely up top. Mateus Kakaro was brought in. He's a player that's been scoring in double digits in Argentina. Joseph Martinez, I know there's questions of what's left in his legs, but he's certainly a better option than Kamara was a couple of years ago. His play really increased when he received the service last year when Messi arrived in Inter Miami. I think that he has a role to play. Apoku was brought in mid-season, another talented attacker. They have all these really good attacking players that they brought in. I think they've done good transfer business, brought in some more experienced players like Ruan, good players across the back line. Brezin, Sirwa, 2 really good goalkeepers. They're strong on the wings. I have one question. Whether Bryce Duke or whether it's going to be Dominic Yankov, a player that flirted with Canada before declaring to play for Bulgaria, whether one of those 2 players in the number 10 position could add enough, can provide that creative spark. Because in center midfield, Chouanier, Saliba, Wanyama, you have different types of profiles of players. I'm really high on this CF Montreal team. The Eastern Conference is really strong, but I think they're going to be a pain in the ass to play against. I think they're going to surpass expectations that are widely put out there.
So if you're way in, they're making the playoffs?
They are a playoff team absolutely this season for me.
We're optimistic.
Jordan?
Wheeler, I agree with you, baby. I'm all in. We're all
Wheels
in.
up. We're in.
We're throwing it in the pot. Yes.
His name is Jordan. Jordan.
Oh, God.
I like it, Wheeler. Look, I'll say this quickly. When you have a Joseph Martinez come into the league, and I've been preaching CF Montreal, they're on bare bones, and they just couldn't really find a way to score. They didn't have a big dog. Yes, he's older, but they still have a big dog. 105 goals he's scored. He will bang in some goals. Bryce Duke is settled. This is a guy, Wheels brings up a great point at the number 10 position. We'll have some productivity. It's settled now at the club. I see this team, if I have to put where they're going to go, they're making playoffs, and they might make a run. Again, in the MLS with so many teams, I cannot go and back a team to go and be in the finals, be in the Eastern Conference finals. But I think this CF Montreal team is far better on paper than they were last season. And last season, they were a hairline away from making into the dance. So I back them all the way.
I didn't expect that.
No, agreement
Unanimous
across the board.
ends.
Yeah, everyone is in on Montreal. All right, reminder, Orlando, Saturday. That's who they're taking on to start their season. Toronto. Let's begin with Toronto FC. Wheels, you get the honors of kicking this one off. Are you in or are you out on the Reds?
I am in with Toronto FC this season because I'm not quite sure how it's going to go, but I'm here for it. I got my popcorn ready, and I'm ready to consume everything that's going to be coming our way. This is really going to be John Herdman's Toronto FC team from game number 1 this season. Like, that's how he wanted it to play out at the end of last season. Last season was like, I'll show up for the last game. I'll scout. I'll do my it starts now. And we'll see if preseason and the Herdman influence, because he is kind of that reclamation guy, whether he can get more out of this group. The announcement of Richie Larea on Friday certainly bolsters the spirit within the team. You bring in a player who clearly wanted to play for Toronto FC all along, a talented guy, and he fits a significant gap to play on that right side with 3 at the back in Herdman's system. You saw it. It's kind of ironic that Herdman challenged him to go on to play in Europe to bolster his standing in the Canadian men's national team. Now he needs him right now, needs him desperately, because without him, it's Bernardeschi, it's Franklin at that position. I think that Larea just solidifies that. Yes, this isn't a complete side. I don't think that they have the requisite depth to go on and be a team that's challenging anywhere near the top of Major League Soccer. But the objective is clear. Be competitive, bring respectability back to a team that was a laughingstock for large parts of last season, And for this team to be successful, Herdman needs to have Bernardeschi and Insigne playing at their top level and top ability. That is the biggest goal of it all here. Insigne should be the top 2, 3, 4 player in Major League Soccer if he's healthy and if he's focused. And both have significant question marks around them. All reports indicate Bernardeschi's had a really good preseason. He can play down the right. He can play underneath the striker in a 2. I think he'll probably start there alongside Jonathan Osorio when the season kicks off. Unless Larrea can't go, then he can play wide right where he's played before. There's options there. I have questions at center back. I have questions whether the central midfield has enough, even though Flores, I think, is a really good pickup in this team. I think that they're going to be much better than they were last season. How good? That is a big question mark. Not playoffs, but I still think that they could be an interesting team.
I was about to say, how are you in on this team? Like, you think what they're going to get 6 wins now?
I'm in based upon what we saw last season and for everything that can play out here. Herdman doesn't hold back. This is the thing. And sometimes it can be a real asset and sometimes it can be his own worst enemy. There's just so many moving parts here. And I think there's going to be significant change during the season as well if they can find some flexibility in this team to add a little bit more. So I'm in. I don't know if it's going to be if they're going to go on and compete for a playoff spot, but I'm in on the spectacle that will be Toronto FC here in 2024.
Oh, you're in on the drama.
I'm in on the drama, the spectacle, and the questions that hopefully will be answered. I'm in on that.
No, Jordan.
Wheels is
Jordan.
in. Wheels is in. Respectfully, I'm out. I agree that they'll be better this season, but granted, last season was 22 points. I think and I believe and I hope that this Toronto FC team will have more points at the end of the season than that. They will not make playoffs. So I won't be in on them. As a fan, look, I live so close to the stadium. I'm rooting for this team deep down in my heart. They'll be better, but they still will be incomplete. Striker position for me is still an area. Center back, Wheels mentioned, is still an area that isn't good enough and they haven't boasted enough. And it's just going to be a work in progress. I think fans and footy people around the club just want to see a team that's better. They always have fans. They always have people to come and support. Just something to be excited about. And I think John Herdman will add to bring that life back to the squad. But I'm going to be out because I believe that this team could easily be a team with all that backing that they have, money, whatever it might be, to be at the top. And they're not there yet. So for me, I'm going to be out until they're actually a team that could compete in the playoffs. But for to put a bow on everything, I'd want to be in. But I can't back them this season. I don't think they'll be good enough.
Ollie?
Jordan out just hit the nail on the head. Like, you can't lower the expectations for this club so far just because they've been so incompetent for the past 2 or 3 years.
They have been lowered. Come on.
No, I'm not doing that because this is still a team that's one of the biggest spenders in Major League Soccer. This is still a team that, if it was run properly, could be one of the top clubs in North America. They're nowhere near that. So I'm not going to lower the expectation just because, of their own failure over the past couple of years. Look, I've tried to talk myself into this one. I do think John Herdman will have a positive impact. I think the team will be fitter, with his staff and the people he works with. I think that side of it will be better. Obviously, I think, based on his time with the Canadian men's national team, I think we've seen Herdman find roles and improve young Canadian players. That should be something that hopefully we see with some of these young TFC players coming through the academy. And we also know that Herdman is very good at the psychological side of things and team building and culture building. And you would hope that there'll be less kind of mistrust in the group, less of those arguments breaking out and bad publicity that plagued this team last season. Obviously, there were some clashes between the DPs and Michael Bradley and Bob Bradley, and that relationship is no longer there, whoever you think was right or wrong. So I think it should be a calmer team this year as well. But when I look at it, like, Montreal was 2 points outside the playoffs last season. CFC was 21. Like, they weren't close. Like, there is a massive, massive gap for them to bridge to get into playoff contention, which should be the absolute minimum expectation for this club. I can't see them doing it. I can see them improving on last season. I can see them finishing 11th, 12th in the Eastern Conference. I can't make them a playoff team based on what we've seen from this group. And, even with the addition of Richie Larrea coming in today, I just don't think it's enough.
Let's finish things off with Vancouver. Jordan, you get first dibs on this one. Vancouver Whitecaps, are you in or are you out?
I am in. I am in. All in. I like this side. Yeah, sorry guys, it was a bit dramatic. It's Friday. You really got to pump into the weekend.
Drum roll.
The drum roll, straight gorilla, like in there. Look, I like the squad. I think if Besher going out, but you have a Kryla coming in, I think throughout the course of a season, you're gonna see we'll call the Twin Towers with White and Krylak. I think they're both gonna bag a bunch of goals, and then obviously Ryan Gauld signing a longer contract, being a DP, the guy that just gets things going for them. This is a team that's great. I think the center back position, you have a lot of names. You have a Laborda, you have Vasilinovic, you have players that know how to play this system. Maybe it would be nice to get a little one more, but I still see this team making the playoffs same way they did. It's just about a bit of luck down the stretch. I think when it comes to game time and those game time moments, and we just saw it in Championship Cup, just having more players step up. But I do think this team has enough in the Western Conference to be higher up on the table and to go far. It's just about when you get to that playoff bit now. You have to go and be a big time team. And I think that's where they are. They're on the cusp of figuring out, okay, we're good throughout a regular season. But when it comes to a must-win match or a two-legged affair, they have to come to play. But I back this team 100%.
Yeah, they seem to have some problems with LAFC as well. That was kind of their nemesis.
I mean, great team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty good team. Wheels, where are you with Vancouver? You in or out?
3 for 3. Wheels in.
Oh,
I'm in on this.
I'm
in on this.
In.
I'm very positive. I actually think that all 3 Canadian teams will have a better season that they had last year. That's why I'm in. I'm encouraged by this. When it comes to the Whitecaps, some tidy business, but I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Krylak and Pico to still show that they can perform. Both are on the wrong side of 30. Krylak's 34. Pico's 32. I think both of they're better. The best days are behind them, but that doesn't mean that they can't serve a role here because at times they're a little bit too young, a little bit too naive in those attacking areas. I think that the system is being set in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think they really missed Atakubi and they really missed Ali Ahmed, who I expect to take another step forward. I still think they're a couple players short here. I still think they need another wide player to add to their complement of players in those positions. And I think they need someone behind Brian White. White and Gauld, White Gauld, as I like to call them, were outstanding last season, pure class, pure quality, but they need more than just that. I think they need another number 9, maybe a little bit of a different profile, someone with a little bit more pace and to be able to stretch the game at times, get in behind the back line. I think they're lacking in that area to a certain degree. I love Kubas and Vite and Gauld in the middle of the park. I think Laborda is taking a step forward. They added a couple center backs in Udvik and Halbouni, who I rate out of London, Ontario. Low risk signing for them and with high potential. I think the Whitecaps, because I think the West is significantly weaker than the Eastern Conference. I think the Whitecaps have the ability to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference and go on and try to do something here. A couple shrewd moves away. I trust in Axel. I trust in my guy, Vanni Sartini. He thought the highlight was being on stage with Nickelback that last year, 2024. He needs to take it up another level. We'll see where he ends up. I love that guy. Love him.
So you're saying top 3. That's where you're going?
Top 3 in the Western Conference and the potential for a very deep playoff run. I mean, playoff time, we can't predict playoffs. MLS is just, who knows what's going to happen October, November. I'm talking about now. This team is one to be reckoned with, Andy Petrillo.
I love it. Ollie, bring it home.
I'm out on what Wheels just predicted. Like you can predict what happens in the MLS playoffs. The teams with
that's what I said. You can't predict that, but they can predict
I'm saying
they're going to finish league-wise.
I'm saying you can.
Oh, you can't right now.
The teams with the teams with the top end attacking talent winning the playoffs every single year. Vancouver don't have enough of that right now. I'm in on a lot of what they have done and are continuing to do. I think defensively they should be better. I really liked how Laborda played in the Tigres tie. I like the idea of Vite and Kubas playing together. I like the additions of Krylak and Pico as kind of supporting pieces in attack. But like what this team needs is very clear at this point, and they have a choice. They can continue to finish top 6 year in, year out while they've got this core in the Western Conference, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's difficult to do, and I'm not saying that they haven't done very, very well to get themselves in that position and build this core. But if they want to take the next step, if they want to knock Tigres out of the Champions Cup, if they want to knock LAFC out of a playoffs series, this team needs another difference maker in attack, and they haven't done that yet. They've seen Richie Laryea go to Toronto FC today. I've got to see them make that next move and make that really ambitious move to take this team over the top before I'm fully in. I'm in on what they've done to this point, but now expectations are higher if you really want to win an MLS Cup and win trophies beyond the Canadian Championship. And on that, at this point in time, I'm still out on their ability to do that.
I'm so confused. So you in or because I heard a lot of in and a lot of out. I don't know.
I heard in.
If we're saying top 3 in the West and an MLS Cup contender, I'm out. I don't think they're there yet.
Okay, but do you think they're making playoffs?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you're in. You're in on Vancouver. We have consensus on Vancouver.
Relative
we have consensus on Montreal.
Hold on.
Not
This is how you play the game. You can be in or out. Take it whatever direction you want. This is Wheels game. You can be in or out. Take it wherever you go. It's not in or out on playoffs.
This game is already confused.
Or you're out with the team. In or out.
This is Wheels game.
And I am the wheels are spinning in my head. I'm confused.